Hi, welcome back to Fabulous Autism Mommy. I'm Diana, and today I wanted to talk about my early intervention series, Part 3. This is the Individualized Family Service Plan portion. If you want to know more about it, stay tuned. So let's talk about the IFSP. If you have a child that is between a newborn and 3 years of age, you will be getting services from the Early Intervention Center. This is basically all the information that is discussed at your assessment evaluation meeting. In this IFSP, I see my child's name, the address, phone numbers, who my service coordinator is, and then at the bottom it says statement of eligibility. So if you were to have an evaluation and assessment, and if your child was not delayed enough per the guidelines of your state, in California, if a child is 33% or more delayed, then they qualify. But let's say that they weren't 33% delayed, so they would just say, they would check this off and say, you know what, you're not eligible for service right now, so they would give you a couple of pointers and tips on, how to get your kiddo up to speed. But, and then that would be that. However, if your child does meet the criteria, and does need services, then they would check off the eligibility box that says that you are eligible for early intervention. And then it has on the second page, just because of names, I'm not going to show this, but I'm going to just tell you what's in here. On the second page, that it states who was present at the meeting, and we all sign off on it. It tells you if it was other than the parents, like the therapist, it'll say the therapist, their signature, what they were doing here. So speech pathologist was for the speech therapist, the agency that they're from, and their phone number, which is a good thing to know, the phone numbers, because after the meeting, if you have any questions, you can always come back to this and call them and ask them for whatever it is that you need, clarification or just a couple of tips. Okay, the following page is family information. They asked me who Eli lives with and who lives in the house, basically, how we get medical services. So like if we have insurance or if we don't have insurance, how that happens. Then they wrote down our concerns, and at that time our concerns were that he would not respond to his name, and just his speech in general. And then it says what our family priorities were, which was to get him to communicate. Okay, following that is child strengths and present abilities. So they talk about his birth, like how much he weighed, how long he was, what his health history is, basically. They talked about his when he walked, when he sat up, when he started crawling, and then they went into some of the testing that they did. So like here it says Eli stacks 5 blocks. I don't know what that means. Places pellet into bottle. I don't know what that means. Sorry. Imitates scribble and uses whole hand to hold crayon. So they're just kind of talking about this. Just kind of talks about what they saw during the assessment. So that's what that page is for. Then the following page is just a continuum of the last page. So the speech therapist went ahead and put in her notes in here. She talked about language comprehension. He had 6 to 9 months successful with emerging skills in the 12 to 15 month range. So it just talks about what his delays were. Okay, so last but not least is the early intervention outcomes. This is where they ask you, what do you want to work on? And I heard that a lot after meeting with therapists. Okay, so what do you want to work on? And I'm like, I don't know. Why don't you tell me? This is really overwhelming. I don't know what I want to work on. What kind of question is that? Like, it's so broad. And if you're just, depending on where you're at, just mentally at that time, it'll be either easy question to answer or a hard question to answer. So if you know that your son has a speech delay, and you know that there's nothing else going on, that might be an easier question to answer. But if there's multiple things going on at this time with your child, then it could be very overwhelming. And add on to that, if you didn't know there was something going on, it's like all surprise. You're kind of like, whoa, I had no idea that my son, had mastered skills at 6 months old and he's only 2. Like, that in itself is just news, and it's hard to just answer. So I kind of felt like that was the toughest part for me, is when they asked me, like, what do you want to work on? That was always hard for me. And if I can just give you a tip, I would say, okay, well, where is he at? I would ask, where is he at right now? Whether if you're just meeting with a speech therapist, and you would just say, okay, well, where is he at right now? What's the next step after where he's at right now? So for example, if he's not communicating at all, I know one of ours was Eli will respond to his name and no. That was one of our goals. Another one was Eli will follow one-step directions, and Eli will say what he wants. Now, these are actually pretty hard because Eli was in a place where he was, it was not easy to get him to do these things. But just, again, to give you a tip, if they ask you that and you just are drawing a blank, just kind of trying to get something out of them, because that can be a very broad question. So just ask them, okay, well, where's he at now? What would be the next step for him? Another thing that really helped me, here I am again talking about the CDC developmental milestone checklists. Another thing that helped me is after all the therapists left and after they were done, and I was just kind of sitting there just taking it all in, trying to figure out like what I needed to do. I went and I printed out all the developmental milestones checklists up until Eli's age. So I found out when he was like 2. So I printed all the ones before 2. And then I went ahead and checked off everything that I knew he knew how to do. And then when I met with my ABA company, I let them know, like, look, these are the milestones he's not meeting. This is kind of where I want to work on. And that kind of just gave me direction. Sorry, I'm a little itchy. That just gave me direction, and it gave me like a place to start. And then once I started going to ABA, or once Eli started having ABA and I was doing the parent trainings and I was like reading and getting more involved, I kind of knew, okay, so now that question is not so daunting. It's not crazy. It's not scary. I know what they mean when they say, what do you want to work on? And I'll make a separate video about that. But at the end of the meeting, I went ahead and signed this IFSP. If you don't want to sign it, you don't have to. You could say, you know what, at this time, I don't want to sign this. I'm not ready. I think about it. I don't know, whatever it is that you want to do. They can continue. They can begin services without you having to sign it. If you want to read the reports before you sign it, you can do that too. Get contact information and email addresses. Most of the time, the therapist and the assessors can email the report to you. And they'll always mail you a copy, but they can always email it and you'll have it sooner. So it's your choice whether you want to sign it on the spot or wait until you get all the reports. You will have an IFSP meeting in 6 months after your first one. So it's kind of like a check-in, just to kind of see where he's at in his goals and how he's progressing. They'll reassess him right around the 6 months, just him or her, right around the 6 months to find out where they're at, how much progress they've made. So I hope this helps. If you have any questions, let me know in the description box below, in the comments box below, and have a good day, stay fabulous, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.